Hi, I'm Jeremy, the Zoo Nerd, coming to you from my backyard in Los Angeles, California, where today I'm sitting in the grass. And that's important because the animals we're going to be talking about today, they eat the grass. And grass is a very important part of life as a zebra. Now here in the United States, we call them zebra, which phonetically I do not understand because it is not spelled that way. There is one E, and then there are two consonants afterwards, so a B and an R. And the rest of the world usually pronounces that word zebra, with the exception of this really cute little girl that I met in Michigan who calls them zebras. But that's a different story. But here in the US, we call them zebra, and we're gonna talk about one of my favorite animals today, the zebra. Now, a lot of people just think that there's one kind of zebra. That's not true. There are 3 different species of zebra, and they actually look quite different. If you see pictures of them side to side, I'll be putting up some photos of those later on the Facebook profile. But the 3 different species are the plain zebra, which can be broken down into several different subspecies, and those are the smallest and the most common of all zebras. And then there is the mountain zebra. That's kind of the medium-sized zebra. And they are in 2 different subspecies, the Cape mountain zebra and the Hartmann's mountain zebra. And they live in 2 different areas. Cape zebras, mountain zebras live in South Africa, and the Hartmann's mountain zebras live over in Namibia and Angola. And then there is the Grevy zebra. Grevy zebra are the zebra species that I worked with when I was a zookeeper. And they are a species that I am quite familiar with, having seen them in Africa when I went to Kenya. Grevy zebra live only in Kenya and a small portion of the country of Ethiopia, although they also used to live in Somalia. They are extinct there currently. So those 3 main species of zebra, again, that's plains, mountain, and Grevies. They all kind of live in different areas in Africa, and I'll put up a map to show where those all are. The Grevy zebra at the bottom, at the south end of their range, they do overlap with a species of plain zebra in that area. And so there are places in the world where 2 different kinds of zebra live side by side. And I was lucky enough to be in one of those spaces and see the differences up close and personal. Zebras are pretty amazing animals. They are in the equine family or the horse family. So their closest relatives would be things like horses, asses, and donkeys. And then their distant relatives would be other members of the, what is the word? They are the other members of the Perissodactylae family, which would be the rhinoceros and the tapirs. And those are, again, odd-toed ungulates, so animals that have either 1 or 3 or maybe 5 toes on their feet. Zebras, of course, have 1 toe. They are hoofed animals, so 1 hoof, 1 toe. Yeah, so they're in the horse family. Zebras, as I mentioned, are grazers. That means they eat almost exclusively grass. Unless they are very desperate, they will primarily eat grass and leave other plants alone. When they are desperate, they will eat the leaves off of some bushes and maybe some low-lying trees. But primarily, they eat grass and they follow the grass. So as the rains move in Africa, after the rains come, the grass grows, and the zebras are following right after that to eat the grass. So zebras are largely nomadic, meaning that they move around quite a bit. They don't have necessarily a home range, although their migrations are kind of controlled by some physical differences like big valleys, big mountains, big rivers that they may not be able to cross. And they would always be near a water source and near good grazing, good grass. To talk a little bit about size of the 3 different species of zebras. So plain zebras, as I mentioned, are the smallest. They are the most common, so there are thousands and thousands of them. They typically weigh between 550 to maybe 650 pounds. They're kind of the shortest. If you put the 3 kinds of zebras next to each other, they would be the short and stocky ones. They usually have the widest of stripes as well. And mountain zebras are going to be in the middle, usually weighing about 600 to 700 pounds. Grevy zebras are the biggest, with a big mare zebra, Grevy zebra, weighing in possibly upwards of 900 pounds. And typically with Grevy zebras, I don't know about the other species, but the mares or the females are usually a bit bigger than the males. Let's see, what else? Oh, the word Grevies, because that one's kind of weird. Plains makes sense. They live on the plains. Mountain makes sense. They live in the mountains, or on the hills at least. Grevy zebras were named after the president of France in 1882. And you might think, well, how is the zebra who lives in Africa named after the president of France? That's a pretty interesting story. So the government of what is now the country of Ethiopia felt that the Grevy zebra was a very regal animal. And so they sent some Grevy zebra to France. They just called them zebra or whatever they called them at that time. But when the president of France received those zebras in France, they were quite taken back by them because they were different than any other zebras that had been described by science up until that point. And since these two zebras now lived in France, they were able to study them and document them, and they named them after Jules Grevy, who was the president of France at that time. Zebras have really amazing hearing and really great vision. And I can attest to this when I was a zebra keeper at the Los Angeles Zoo. When you would come into the zoo in the morning, they would usually either see or hear you before you got too close to them. And they would come over to the fence to say hi, which was always really cute. They could move their big round ears quite a bit and independently of each other so that they could locate where sounds were. And they're really good at doing that. They have excellent hearing. Their vision, they think, is as good as an owl during the nighttime, which is really impressive night vision. But that's because zebras need to be aware 24 hours a day of what is going on around them. Zebras are one of the favorite prey species for some of the predators in Africa. Particularly lions love to eat zebras. They did a predator study of the one conservancy where I visited, and they found that most of the animals that the lions ate were zebras, with a little bit more of a preference to go after Grevy zebra. Or at least they ate Grevy zebra a little bit more than the plain zebra. That may have something to do with the social structure as well. Plain zebras usually are in pretty big herds, or a bigger herd at least than Grevies. Grevy zebras, the males actually define a territory. They kind of walk around the edges of their territory and mark their territory with poop and pee. And then the females kind of move around in a small group with maybe 2 or 3 females and their babies. So they kind of wander in and out different males' territories, and the males are usually kind of alone. Now, because of that social structure, if a predator comes up upon the zebra, or if it's a group of predators, like a pride of lions, they could possibly go after that one animal pretty easily, or a smaller group and single one out pretty easily. Whereas the plain zebras would be in a bigger herd, there would be more eyes and more ears listening and watching for that predator to come up. And so lions in particular love to eat zebras. They do have to worry about other predators as well. Definitely hyenas, occasionally African wild dogs, and as they cross rivers, they would need to watch out for the big crocodiles. And not just crossing rivers, but when they come down to get a drink as well. Zebras typically drink every day. The Grevy zebra can go a couple of days without water if they need to, but not if they're a mom with a newborn baby. They need to drink water every day. A powerful kick from a zebra can kill a predator. They can definitely do some damage with those big sharp hoofs. They can kill a lion or a leopard, a hyena, an African wild dog. Probably couldn't kill a crocodile. Crocodiles have very thick skin, and it's probably just the best defense from a crocodile would be to get back to land and get far away from the water. One of the big questions that people have about zebras is, why are they striped? There's a lot of theories about that, one of which has to do with being able to confuse a predator from being able to single out an individual. If you have a bunch of zebras all running together and all those stripes moving around, it's going to be tougher for the lions or the hyenas to focus on one animal. Those stripes can really cause a lot of confusion in trying to see. Hi, give me just a second. My phone overheated because it was in the direct sun. So we're gonna try this again, going from a little shadier spot. All right, sorry about that. Learning all the time, including don't let your phone sit in the sun too much or it will shut down. Okay, so we were talking a bit about stripes and we'll talk a little bit more about them. So another theory about stripes is that it can actually deter flies from biting the animals as much. That's kind of a newer theory about stripes and zebras. They found that the flies would land on a non-striped animal much more so than landing on an animal like a zebra with the stripes. Flies are a big part of a problem in Africa. They can carry some diseases, but they can also be very painful to the animals. They bite pretty hard, and if stripes were evolved to end that, that would be a very good and helpful thing. There's also new research being done about dispersing heat. Where zebras live in Africa, it can be very hot, and the difference in color in the stripes can help them to radiate out heat differently through the black stripes versus the white areas. So lots of different theories about why zebras have stripes, but it is definitely a possibility with the camouflage. Multiple other animals have stripes as well. If you think about things like tigers have stripes, there's several different antelope that have stripes. All of those can use their stripes to help camouflage. So definitely useful thing for the animals to have. I want to talk a little bit about baby zebras. Baby zebras can stand within about 20 minutes of being born. They can usually walk before an hour, and within 2 hours or so, they can usually run. That's impressive. And baby zebras are born pretty good size, with the plain zebra babies being about 55 pounds, Grevy zebra babies being about 85 pounds. That's a big baby, right? That's a huge baby. But those big babies could be potential meals for a lot of predators. And so that ability to get up on their feet and be moving quickly is going to help quite a bit. The parents, adult zebras, can run about 35 miles an hour. Babies within a couple of weeks can keep up to that speed. So that's very impressive growth and development for a baby zebra. When baby zebras are born, they're very, very long-legged. Their legs are almost as long as a baby as they would be as an adult. So it's a little body on top of pretty tall legs. Really adorable to see. At the LA Zoo when I worked there, we did have some babies born. Grevy zebra babies born, and they were by far one of the cutest baby animals that I got to work with, although I loved working with many of the baby animals I got to work with as a zookeeper. I want to talk a little bit about gestation, or the amount of time that zebras are pregnant. So with the plains zebras, that's usually around 11 months, which is a very long time. With Grevy zebras, that's closer to 13 to 14 months. So that's quite a bit longer than humans are pregnant. And it kind of makes sense when you think about how big those babies are when they're born. They have to grow a lot before they're ever born. So big babies, longer pregnancy. I want to focus a little bit about Grevy zebras in particular because they are the most endangered. They are listed as endangered, and sometimes that switches on a year-to-year basis to critically endangered if their population numbers dip much lower. At the last census that they have numbers for, which was in 2018, there were just around 3,000 Grevy zebras. which is great. Those numbers were actually up. There were 2,812 individual zebras counted in Kenya, and another 230 zebras counted in Ethiopia. So Kenya is definitely where most of the Grevy zebras live. And you think, wow, how did they count each individual zebra? Well, they had a team of volunteers of about 350 people who drove in 1 kilometer grids and counted any zebras that they saw and photographed them. And by photographing them, they were able to identify individual zebras, because each individual zebra has its own unique stripe pattern. And so if you take all those photos of zebras and it shows their sides, shows their stripe pattern on the side view of a zebra, and you put that into a computer, the computer can match those pictures up and identify that, oh, this zebra and this zebra, although they were both counted on the same day, 3 miles apart, that is the same animal. It just moved before they were able to count it in both spots. And the computers have really helped out in animal data tracking for that regard. But each zebra has a unique stripe pattern, and as a zookeeper at the zoo, we used those stripes to identify who was who. We could sometimes tell by personality or other things from farther away, but the stripes were always our definite, oh, this one is this zebra, this is that zebra, based on their stripes. Let's talk a little bit about why zebras are endangered. The Grevy zebras have the most narrow stripes, so it goes white, then black, then white, then black, in the smallest space. That became a problem for them back in the 1970s when zebra print was very popular among people to have maybe a zebra rug or a little zebra decoration in their house. And that became a very popular thing for people in Africa to hunt, to sell their hides. And the Grevy zebra proved to be the most bang for your buck, if you will, because you could cut that hide into smaller pieces and still see that it was a zebra. If you have a piece of hide like this size of a plain zebra, it might be just all black or just all white. If you had a piece of hide that size from a Grevy zebra, you could easily have like 12 or 15 stripes in that space, because their stripes are so narrow. And so they were also a bigger animal. You could get a bigger hide from them. And they live in a very dry and semi-arid place, so not quite a desert, but almost a desert. It also means that they were pretty easy to see from far distances away. The grass was not too tall. But there's other problems with zebra besides them being hunted for their hide, although that brought the initial Grevy zebra population down. In 1970, they estimated it was about 15,000 zebras. And like I said, in 2018, the census put it just over 3,000. There are other problems though, including drought, habitat degradation, and competition with livestock. So the people in Africa, they raise a lot of animals, particularly goats, sometimes also cows or maybe sheep, and in some places maybe even camels. And all of those animals also like to eat some of the same plants, and especially some of the grass that zebras like to eat. Goats in particular will eat almost anything that is green and some things that aren't. And so if you keep goats in a very large or in a very small space over a long period of time, they will eat everything. And then it's very difficult for the plants to come back. And so livestock competition is a big problem for a lot of zebras, in that the people are just maybe not aware how much their goats are eating. So there are some great organizations that are working to kind of help educate the local people on how to move their herds around more and the benefits of wildlife. One of those is the Wildlife Conservancy that I visited, called Lewa Wildlife Conservancy. They themselves used to be a cattle ranch, and in the 1980s they decided to become a wildlife conservation organization full-time, and they now support schools, hospitals, and community centers for a lot of the communities around their area. And in those community centers, they're able to offer education about irrigating, about farming, about raising animals, and that can also help out the local wildlife species. They also help them understand the importance of the local wildlife, and that local wildlife is a big tourism draw, especially if you have something unique, like a unique type of zebra that only lives in a small area. There are people who will travel and pay good money to see those zebra. And those people coming in can bring some of that money with them and help pay for the schools, for the clinics, and other things. And so that's a very comprehensive conservation plan to help the local people out, but also help the wildlife out. There's also an organization called the Grevy Zebra Trust. They are the people who organize that zebra census. One of my coworkers from the Los Angeles Zoo actually went and participated in that back in January of this year. They're still kind of doing that computer research of matching up all the photos to get their numbers for the 2020 zebra survey. But the Grevy Zebra Trust specifically works to help the local people understand the importance of zebras on the environment and as a tourism draw, but also helping those people out as well, because they know that happy, healthy people will mean happy, healthy wildlife. And those two things go very well together. There's also another organization called the Northern Rangelands Trust that works in the same area and coordinates work between the Lewa Wildlife Conservancy and the Grevy Zebra Trust. And those three organizations overlap very well together in working one with each other to help out the communities and also help out improving the landscape for the livestock, for the people who live there, and for the wildlife. Some of that includes digging wells to help provide water for both the people and their livestock, and also the wildlife. Some of those programs are very amazing. They're able to help save some of the rainwater during the wet season that they're able to then use during the dry season. And that's an important part in conservation in an area that is pretty dry and sometimes very dusty. I want to talk a little bit about working with zebras in a zoo setting. That was a great species I loved working with. We were always very careful around the zebras. We never went in the same space with the adult zebras, because unless it was an extreme emergency, because they are very big, strong, powerful animals. Like I said, the big ones could weigh over 900 pounds. That's an animal that you don't want to upset. If you were working in and around them, they could do some pretty big damage. But they're very intelligent animals. The main zebra keeper there in the Los Angeles Zoo does a really great job of training them and can have them hold still to do different medical procedures and to get their weights. They're very smart and they really enjoy working with their keepers. A really brilliant animal to work with and very charismatic and fun. Now, zebras also communicate with each other, which I forgot to talk about earlier because of the phone issues we had. But they communicate through a series of vocal communications and also body language. So that can include how they're holding their ears, if their ears are upright, if their ears are flared, if their nostrils are flared out, if their lips curled back to show their teeth, the intense look of their stare. All of those things will help communicate different emotions to the different zebras around. And then there are, of course, some very loud vocalizations. I'll see if I can find a nice video of that and put up on the Facebook page later today. I hope you've enjoyed our chat today about zebras. I hope you're staying safe and being happy and also having fun and learning some things. I encourage you to like, share, follow, and subscribe to all of the Zoo Nerd platforms. I'll put up the full videos on the Facebook profile later today and also on the YouTube, and I'll share more information there as well. And until tomorrow, I will see you then. Hope you have a great day. We'll see you later. Thank you.